lost, lonely, or maybe even a little bit loony. I talk about all these things on my show and how to help them. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Mental Melodies in the year 2024. I was having this interesting feeling this morning when I woke up, and I was just feeling like it didn't really feel like a new year. And I was kind of looking at everybody's New Year's Eve posts and all the things that they were reflecting on, and I didn't really have much to say. And I think part of it is just because I say most of what needs to be said on here, and I felt like I sort of closed out 2023 on my last episode of Mental Melodies, and then I just relaxed for a little bit. I spent New Year's Eve actually down at the beach relaxing, just sleeping and napping in my car and walking along the beach and hanging out with my dog and just kind of like resetting. And it helped me to, I think, like recommit to this idea that rest is going to be very important, because after just so many years of planning out my life and like getting to I don't know, this year where I'm like really, a lot of the things that I've manifested a long time ago are coming to fruition. It makes my sense of time a little bit warped. And so lately, the last couple years, it's felt like a year is not very much time for me. And that is like stressing me out a little bit, because I have all these goals that I want to achieve. And I guess when I look back on a year, like I think about all that happened last year, I'm like, wow, there was so much that was done. But when I look ahead to the year, it doesn't feel like that much, because it's almost like, I don't know, like a month just feels more like one small chunk of time to me. So I think like I only have 12 different chunks of time. But perspective is one of the things that I wanted to bring up today. And I guess I actually wanted to start the episode by kind of just like recapping some of the stuff I talked about last year so that I could then frame myself for the upcoming year. But I wanted to talk about perspective today and identity today. And also I have a couple like little tidbit stories to share about stuff that I've been finding. So I'm just going to go back and talk about the last episode a little bit. If you are new to Mental Melodies, my name is Carmynn. I am an actress, singer, songwriter, talk show host, mental health advocate. There's a few things also about me that have been coming back to me lately, because I kind of like let go of them for a little bit. So a few other things that I am and I do is I'm a healer, I'm a reader, I'm a writer, I'm very much an intellectual. And so a lot of the things that I do are kind of coming together and have come together in order for me to be here on this show talking to all of you week after week. So I talk about mental health, but I use my own experience through what I've studied in school, but also through experiences that I've had in order to highlight some of these topics. And it's just been such a lovely, lovely journey. I don't know, I think it's been 12 or 13 weeks or something like that, and I've learned so much, and I've grown so much, and I've healed so much. And so healing is one of the things that I talk about, and I guess specifically about like how to heal yourself. And that's something that I talked about last week, because it was in response to something that I had said the prior week about like going out and getting therapy. And I was talking in response to the shooting that happened not that long ago. And if you were listening, I was talking about how I was feeling kind of this guilt, because as a former mental health therapist, I felt that I wasn't like doing my due diligence by being able to give like free therapy away at that time. But after that one episode where I was kind of in my feels about that, I realized that there is value in what I'm giving back to the mental health community now. And though I'm not sitting in an office with one person talking to them about their stories, I am giving information to people in order to heal themselves. And that's just as powerful. Another thing that I talk about a lot on this show, if you've been listening, is just opposites and duality, right? So I believe in life as a whole, and that everything has to exist, and like I see life as very much yin and yang. And so that's why it was so important for me to sit here and say, like, I spent New Year's Eve resting, because that's what I needed to do. I went through a whole 12-hour shift on Saturday. I was supposed to leave earlier that day, and then I ended up driving to the beach. It was 4 hours because I went all the way to the thick of San Diego from Las Vegas, and I made it, and then I was like, I'm done. I had plans to come back to try and go to a friend's New Year's Eve event, and it just didn't happen. But I rested and I reconnected with myself. And it's funny because my roommate was actually telling me, like, is that why you're going, to reconnect with yourself? And at that point, the only reason I was really going was simply because I had planned it. And one of the things that I've been talking about on Mental Melodies is having follow through. And I had said I was going to go. I really wanted to make it out there. I've been making it out to Ocean Beach in December for the last few years, and I wanted to follow through on that tradition. And it would have been really easy for me not to, because again, I was really exhausted and I had worked a lot and there were other things that were popping up, but it was really important for me to end the year with rest and to end the year like taking care of myself, but also to end the year following through on things. And that was a big topic in last week's, or 2 weeks ago, episode prior to Christmas. So it's been a minute. Welcome back. But anyway, yeah, I was talking about follow through, and I was specifically talking about vision boards. And this has been something that has just like completely altered my life. And what happened, I don't know if it started today or if it started yesterday, but the story I was going to share is about my journals. And I've talked about my journals a couple times on here before, but essentially I have, I think, 2 giant baskets full of journals now, and it's just years worth of writing. And most of it is crap. A lot of it is just ideas. Some of it, though, is like daily journal reflections, and I had begun this back in 2015. And it's funny because usually on the show, when I kind of talk about the time when it was that I started to heal, I always reference 2020 because that was like the first vision board that I had really planned for. But the beautiful thing about being in this space and like thinking about my journey and sharing my story is that I realized that I had begun a lot of these things way back when. So I got rid of all of my books recently. That was something that I've talked about that was really, really hard for me, because another topic that I've mentioned on this show is like minimalism, and I've been just trying to let go of things to make space for more things, and mostly to make space in my brain. And so I had this beautiful book collection, and I just donated it all. I didn't get a check for taxes or anything like that you're supposed to do. I was just like, I need to get rid of these things, and I got rid of it. And that's the thing I've been the most sad about, for sure, is letting go of my book collection. But what I realized when I was in San Diego and I got a couple new books is that I didn't lose like that part of me that likes to read, or that part of me that likes to learn, by getting rid of my books. All I did was just free myself up so that I could be in control of my space and not feel so cluttered and all of those things. And so one commitment that I have this year, going back to this whole follow through idea, is to be a library going person, so that I can get a book, read a book, finish it, and give it back. And I love this idea of having libraries, and I haven't used them since I was a child, but I like the idea of having this like collective community of knowledge that we can go to and pull from and give back to. So that's something that I want to follow through on for myself. And that's also from a financial health perspective. That's one of the things I've been working on for a very long time, is trying to find a way to organize my finances and to really honestly not be so childish about it. And it's, I'll throw up my hands and be like, yeah, I'm donating a lot of stuff, but I'm not going to get any receipts for my taxes simply because I'm too lazy. And that's something I don't want to do this year. Is I want to be able to be to feel like I can hold all the things that I'm purchasing and all of the money that's coming in and all the money that's coming out, and be able to not feel stressed about finances. Finances is actually one of the envelopes that's on my vision board for this year, and it's kind of stands out from the rest because a couple weeks ago when I was talking about my vision board, I was like, yeah, all these things on my vision board are related to my projects, and many of them are. I have a comedy section, and I have a section for Mental Melodies, and I have a section for acting, and a section for my album that I'm writing, and then a section for songs that I'm learning that I'm covering. But I also have a section for finances, because I think that's just so important. And It's been a lifelong journey for me figuring out how to be healthy with finances. And a lot of the times I can't follow through on those things, or it becomes too much to handle because it's like, I don't know, you all have to deal with money, so you probably understand what I'm saying. But at least, like for me personally, it's been a whole journey. And I've talked about how my life is very much like an experiment. And so essentially, all I feel that I can do is do better when I know better. That's like a famous Maya Angelou quote that I always come back to, except she says, do what you can until you know better, and then when you know better, do better. So I've just been simplifying that in my mind, essentially, like, do better when you know better. And the takeaway from that for me is not to feel guilty, right? Because a common analogy that I use about this starting over thing is working out, because a lot of people around this time of year, right, will start these New Year's resolutions, and it's all about losing weight or getting on some kind of diet or getting physically healthy or whatever. I think people stay in that space for a very, very long time, where that's where they are every New Year's. Like, this year I'm going to be healthy. I used to do that, and that going back to me noticing that I have kind of always been doing vision board type things without really realizing it. I had kind of a flashback to, gosh, it must have been probably around 2015, which is the journal that I found today that I was looking through was from 2015. And but even prior to that, like as a teenager, I would set goals for myself, and I would write them on a sheet of paper at the end of the year, and I would put it up, and those would be my goals. And oftentimes back then, my goals were related to weight loss, even when I didn't need to lose weight. Because another thing I've shared multiple times is that I've had multiple eating disorders in the past, and so healing from that was kind of the start to being able to heal from other things. What was I going to say? The journal that I found, that was from 2015, there were some really interesting things in it that, again, just made me realize, like, I've been on this journey even before I became aware of it. And I was talking about, like, I said something like it's really great to have routines, but sometimes I need a break from them. And that was back when I didn't even realize I was thinking about those things. And it's funny because these like very, very simple truths that come out for me, I feel like they come out multiple times until I can really, really learn the lesson. And so that's something that I am still working at, is like figuring out how to have a routine and how to have a plan, but also being completely grounded in the moment. So what that looks like for Mental Melodies, for example, is that I've had this plan in my mind of like being able to plan out every single episode of the year. And I had that plan, and I was supposed to be done by the end of the year, and I didn't. I finished my vision board, I did a lot of other things, but I did not plan out the topics for Mental Melodies for the rest of the year. And I feel that to some extent I do want to plan things, and I do want to be able to make a decision, but I also want to lean into the moment. And that's the thing I've been learning here on this show, is like I show up and I have a few things that I want to say, and then I just roll with it. And I do want to strike a balance though with that, where I do want to be able to lean into the moment, but I also, going back to that follow through thing, I want to follow through on the things that I say that I'm going to do. And with all of this, there's just this lesson that's coming up in my mind right now, just about grace and giving yourself grace and giving yourself the opportunity to start over, and giving yourself the opportunity to reevaluate and all of those things. So I'm going to pick back up with talking about all of this in a couple of minutes. I'm going to take a little bit of a break, and I'll see you back.
Traditional TV is going away. Hollywood is starting to fade. People are demanding real stories from real people. Our voices are now being heard in our own way. Podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok Live are becoming the norm. Internet TV has now reached the highest demand in human history. Social media shows is now the new media of the century.
Vegas, here we come!
I can't believe we're all moving to Vegas.
I know, right? It's a dream come true.
Wow, super creepy dude.
Mason, stop. I think he heard you.
What if someone walked up in the back of his semi?
She's gone. Someone took her. Who's that creepy trucker?
What are you doing?
They call me Mother Trucker.
Hi everyone, Carmynn Bradley here. Welcome back to the second segment of this episode of Mental Melodies. Thank you for tuning in and listening and allowing me to talk through these things. I've definitely popped out a lot of topics, and I was just talking about following through and specifically on choosing things that I'm going to talk about every episode, and that is something that I do want to follow through on. So catch me in the next few episodes having plans, but again, there's something just so beautiful about being able to lean into the moment. So I once again am going into this new year having the desire to be both fully present and fully planned, and I mentioned this last week because I was saying that I had done a vision board where I filled a bunch of stuff in, and then I also did a blank one for me to just to remind me visually that I'm also open. I'm open to new opportunities, to new relationships, to new ways of thinking and new ways of spending my time. Because one of these opposite things that's come up for me a lot in my journey through just healing and learning and growing is this balance and contrast between rigidity and fluidity. Those were the words that I was using. And this was again around 2020. And like I said, I feel like I'm still learning a lot of these lessons that I now have traced back to 2015. And I opened the journal during the break and I was looking at some of these goals that I had, and they're interesting. Some of them very similar to now, be money wise is one of the things that I wanted to do way back then. And then also becoming a mental health speaker was on there. And I thought that was interesting because here's one thing that totally came to fruition, and that was really cool. There was a funny line. The day I signed up for my master's in counseling was November 7th, 2015. And the opening line to my journal entry that day was, I just signed up for my master's in counseling program. I have no money. And I don't know why, it was just so funny to me because some things just never change. But it was also cool just to see that, to be able to reconnect with me in that moment, the person that signed up for this program, without realizing where it would take me. And I thought that was really cool. And so I guess in a way I was grateful that I didn't burn all of my journals, because I did plan on doing that. And I used to just write constantly, and I've shared this on the show before, and I struggled for a very, very long time with how to organize my information and how to turn what I was writing into projects. And so I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote until now, where I feel like I don't have as much, it's in yoga, it's called monkey mind, where you just have all these thoughts going on, right? And so it took me a very, very long time and many, many, many years of just writing every day whatever came to my mind in order to find the organized stuff within my brain. And I've mentioned this before, there's this kind of metaphor or analogy I have about my own creative process, where it feels very much like I'm sculpting things, but it's like the songs and the whatever it is, the poems or articles that I need to write, they're kind of like in there, but they're mashed in by all of this other like nonsense and judgment and emotions and all of these other thoughts that get in the way. And then there's the project within it, and it's like I have to sculpt it all out. So I literally did have to spend years just writing whatever was on my mind in order to begin my healing journey, and also to find like the jewel within. I have this really cool story from when I was doing mental health therapy, and I was doing parts and memory therapy, which is another thing I've brought up multiple times. And it's when you go into the subconscious mind, guided by a therapist, and they will help you talk to your younger self, save your younger self from traumatic memories, and literally change your brain structure. And so one time I was working with a client, and what happened is we put all of these memories into a basket, tossed it into the water, and you're doing this mentally, right? You're throwing all of these memories that you see in your mind and all this energy attached to them into a basket, and you're watching the water wash it away. And what happened is, once we washed all the nonsense away from these traumatic memories that she had, this white pearl came out. And I asked her to identify the white pearl, and she said, "This is me. This is me underneath it all. This is this beautiful, like untouched," I can't remember exactly the word she used, but it was something like that, where it was like, once you take away all of the nonsense, there's something left over, and it's this beautiful thing that is you, that needs to be loved, that needs to be taken care of, that is beautiful because it's you and for no other reason. And it was just this lovely thing, and it reminds me of essentially what I've been doing, where I've just been trying to learn about who I am and how I became that way, and then picking the stuff that I don't like and throwing it away, and then taking the good stuff and rolling forward with it, and then continuously, again, giving myself grace to start over. And it's just been this constant, like, getting down and picking myself back up, and getting down and picking myself back up. And it's lovely, honestly. But I guess this all ties in to like the new year and all that, because I was feeling very much this year like 2024 doesn't feel as much of a beginning for me anymore, because I have so many things that I'm now doing, and I'm very focused on them, that it feels more just like a continuation of last year. And I think that's probably a good thing. But I was mentioning in my last episode how I was feeling a little unsettled, that my mind was quieter. And so I'm feeling a little less panicked, because I feel like I know what I need to do in certain moments. And so that's a beautiful thing to look forward to if you're on a healing journey, is that you really do find relief from first of all, I was saying, like, my eating disorder thoughts. Like, if I never healed from those, then every single year since 2015 or even earlier, because I had disordered eating and like crazy goals about weight loss back when I was a teenager. And if I had never healed from any of those things, I wouldn't be here. I'd be back at home and I would be making goals about losing weight and trying to fit into tiny pants. And I would be so overwhelmed with that I would never have gotten here. I wouldn't have finished my degree, all of these things. It's hard for me to imagine that, because I've just always been a very like driven person, and it would be very hard for me to imagine being the same way that I was in 2015. But it's beautiful how there's a balance, right? There's still some lessons I've been mentioning about like rigidity and fluidity, and about spending money wisely and all of those things that I wanted to learn back in 2015, and I'm still learning now. But the thing is that they become less intense, and it becomes easier. And so like last year, when I felt like I had to start over, because I've shared my story a little bit about my divorce last year, and getting kicked out, and it was this like literally rug out from underneath my feet kind of experience. But because I've had those experiences before, I was able to talk myself through it, and to say like, this is temporary because you've been through it before, those sorts of things. And that self-talk is so valuable. Again, just going back to that, like giving yourself grace and giving yourself the opportunity to start over. And I think that's why like the new year is such a beautiful thing. Even though this year for me, like I said, it doesn't feel so much like a beginning because here I am doing what I do every Tuesday anyway. And, you know, here I am in the morning waking up and going to the gym. And then welcome all of you New Year's resolutioners, by the way. I saw you today. Good on you. But anyway, I'm doing the things that I've been doing. Like I've been going to the gym 3 days a week consistently now for over a year. I've been playing my guitar just about every day for a while now. And so it doesn't feel like this drastic, oh shoot, I gotta be a totally different person in 2024. Instead, I'm going to be very much the same person, but I'm going to continue to work on the things I want to work on. And I think that's a space that's a goal space. Like pat myself on the back for getting there. But again, there's so many lessons that I still am learning and like figuring out how to do. And I think this like life being an experiment and being able to troubleshoot your own life is so, so valuable. I think like foundationally, autonomy is one of my favorite topics. Like I think about what kind of TED Talks I'm going to talk about. And I guess that's part of the reason I'm throwing out all these topics, because maybe if I listen back to this episode, then I can schedule out my year like I said I was going to. But there's so many things that I feel that I want to share out in the world, and I want to talk about these things. And autonomy is one of those. And I guess when I think about the difference between like 2020 me that was creating that vision board and saying like these are all the things I wanted to do versus 2015 me, like young kid trying to teach high school students, getting fired from her teaching jobs because I couldn't teach high school students. I just didn't have any classroom management at all. It was very, very challenging. I'm going to go sideways a little bit here, but I actually wore this outfit on purpose when I was thinking about this episode and what I wanted to say. Because one of the things, again, another topic is identity that I wanted to talk about. And I think I talked about it last episode actually, but regardless, I talked about these theories about identity, right? And how you have like a persona and an ego and a shadow. And I thought that the 3 Powerpuff Girls are a really good representation of like my personality. The crazy cool things have been happening to me the last few weeks where a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about, books and podcasts and videos have been coming my way that are just highlighting that. And I've been eating 100 words a day of books lately and reawakening this part of myself that was kind of like dormant, I guess, because I was focusing so much on music. But anyway, so there was this video that came up that was reaffirming this idea I've talked about on the show before, that your identity is more of a university, right? You don't have just one, this is me, Carmynn, and I am blank. And there's no way for my identity to be simple. I have so many different hats that I wear and so many different things that I do. But I like the Powerpuff Girls analogy for me because, so can you see this on the video? I don't know if you can see that Bubbles is down at the bottom. And she's like my personality, I would say, unfortunately. I've been fighting this a lot. But my friend Mike Kearney actually, he's been teaching me about that, and a lot of other people have, that I just have this very like kind of cute bubbly personality, and I've always not wanted to be cute and bubbly. I wanted to be hot like my older sister who was like mean to boys, but I'm nice to boys and I'm nice to everybody, and that's me. I'm Bubbles. But I've also been creating this identity for myself, which is a little more buttercup. And that's my like rock star. I play the guitar. I am sometimes mean to boys because I need to be. Like, this is the personality that I've created that I need to balance out like the Bubbles that I am. And then there's also this core part of me. I partially chose the buttercup on the sweater because I can't wear green to my green screen events. I've done it 3 times, but I'm not going to do it in 2024. But anyway, I feel like I don't know what it is about buttercup, but there's this representation of me being like more giving and motherly that is also very much a part of who I am. So anyway, I am not just one thing. I'm all of these different things. And the video that I found the other day, I wish I could remember who it was, but she essentially was reaffirming that. And she made a joke saying like everybody has multiple personality disorder. And that's not true, but we do have many different parts of ourselves that we need to give space to. So anyway, I'm going to pick back up with something in a couple of minutes. I will see you back here in a couple minutes.
The year is 2980, and we now know that death is not the end. A soul can be extracted from the recently deceased and be used to create a blue liquid called essence. It can bring a person back to life.
We'll get her back.
I hope so.
It's an expensive process used by the rich and powerful. The rest, they do what they can to survive.
Stay right there.
You told me you're hiding from some dangerous people.
Let's knock on the door. I spent the last year searching for the Deep Star. A bounty so big that the entire galaxy could be yours.
People have been looking for the Deep Star for years. It can't be found.
It's because they can't find the distress beacon. I know where it is. If we find the Deep Star, we could get enough credits to bring Mom back.
Blast off.
Guys, we have company.
You can run, but you cannot hide. Prepare for impact.
I am now authorized to take action.
And now you die.
No!
Traditional TV is going away. Hollywood is starting to fade. People are demanding real stories from real people. Our voices are now being heard in our own way. Podcasts, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok Live are becoming the norm. Internet TV has now reached the highest demand in human history. Social media shows is now the new media of the century.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the third segment of this episode of Mental Melodies, and Happy New Year to everybody. Thank you again for listening and tuning in and just allowing me to kind of process these things. This, again, is just really helpful for me to kind of conceptualize where I'm going and what we're going to talk about this year, and just thank you for being along for the ride. I'm definitely all in with this, and it's so awesome to have something to create. And just going back to what I've been saying about how everything has kind of come together, like this is really does feel like my life's work. Like a lot of the stuff that I've been thinking about, reading about, studying, just feeling very passionate about is all coming out into this one project, and that feels so good. It's so hard. I guess not that hard to explain, but I guess I'm just feeling very grateful for it, and feeling very grateful for where I've come and how I got here, and also like grateful for my own naivete, because what I was talking about with comparing me in 2015 to like me in 2020, it was just, again, just like this kid trying to figure things out and really wanting things to be better, and this kid like not feeling well. I wasn't feeling well back then, and a lot of writing was me just trying to feel better and trying to process why I had so many thoughts. And so I just set so many goals back then that I just didn't even really realize how powerful they would be. And so that ties into something else I've talked about over and over again, just this idea of planting seeds. And I definitely started off the first episodes talking a lot about intentions, partially because when I first thought I was going to do a kind of a talk show, I've mentioned this before, how I had this weird epiphany and I tried to do it and it fell through. And I was just kind of like saying stuff, and I was trying to create a studio, and at that time I called it The Daily Intent. And I was just gonna try and make up an intention every single day and go with that. And I was writing articles and I was writing poetry, and I was just trying things, just going along with that idea of troubleshooting. Like I was just trying things and then throwing them away when it didn't work, and it took a really, really long time to get here. But intentions are so powerful, and I just think they're, let me give you an analogy. When I was talking about the parts and memory therapy, there's so much power in this therapy, but I think also just in any kind of healing, because for parts and memory, what happens, this is how one therapist actually described it to me when I was doing some intense, like deep work, is that it works kind of like dominoes. So there are clients I saw last year who we did like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 intense parts and memory sessions, and they're probably still going through some of the stuff that were symptoms of those emotions that were inside of them. But over time, what they're going to see is that that's going to get less and less. Something I mentioned in the last segment, there's a lot of stuff that was so hard for me a few years ago that is still hard for me, but it's less intense. And there's so much value in that if you can recognize that you're making small progress, eat that up. Extend your like feeling of gratitude in that moment and allow yourself to celebrate those small things, because if you continue to focus your mind on those things, your brain is going to change, like 100%, absolutely. So the way that, again, that therapy works is that it will start to, over time, lessen the intensity of, again, the symptoms that you're having. So I've talked about like emotions being the core of when you have a mental illness. If you're experiencing mental illness symptoms, that's because of emotions that you haven't dealt with. And I'm making these emotions in my body because I imagine a lot of the emotions that we have that get stuck sit here in our gut, but really everywhere. So you think about like a lot of the symptoms I was having when I was diagnosed with lupus in 2013. So I had swollen fingers, and my knees hurt a lot to the point where I was even limping, and I was like 21. And just in general, my body hurt. I was having fevers, gastrointestinal issues, all of these things. And my fingers are not swollen anymore, and my knees don't hurt, and I only get random fevers and rashes if I'm like to the point where I'm so overwhelmed that I should be resting, and I'm not, that kind of thing, because I've learned over the years how to listen to my body, how to incorporate rest. But I've also essentially drudged up the old emotions from old traumas I hadn't dealt with, and dealt with them and sat with them for a very, very long time. And so it's just so powerful to know that maybe you're experiencing physical or mental like illness symptoms, but you can heal them, and you can heal them through psychological means. And I think that's just such a powerful thing. And that's why I like to say that I'm a healer, because healing is possible in our world. And the thing that happens a lot of the times, or most of the time, I think, with people is that they start to feel sick, and then they go to the doctor, and then they're stuck because they're taking medication every day for the rest of their lives. Like for me, lupus was a huge part of my identity for a very, very long time. And I was going to the doctor once every few weeks, and then it was once every 6 weeks, and then it was whenever I didn't feel good, and then I was going to the emergency room all the time, and I was taking medication, and I was kind of feeling better, but not really. And at the end of the day, having a diagnosis helped me in a sense, but for the most part, just getting stuck in going to doctor's offices didn't heal me from anything. What healed me from lupus and from those physical symptoms and from my eating disorder was the writing that I've done, and the yoga that I've done, and the therapy that I've done, and the reflection that I've done, and all of the things that I've tried and failed at and continue to try, and all of the troubleshooting. And it's really just, I guess going back to that idea of autonomy, like when I think about all of the stuff that I've healed from and all of the progress that I made, most of it came down to me, like taking a step forward and wanting to be better and trying to find ways to be better. And even the part of me that did step foot into doctors' offices and ask them like what was wrong with me, was also the part of me that was like not taking it as my reality, like not accepting it and not saying like this is how I want to be forever. But I did definitely, when I was first diagnosed, think that it was going to be forever, that I was going to feel sick forever. And same thing happened when I was first diagnosed with depression, and I thought it was going to be forever. But there was a part of me then, I remember when one of my first therapists, who I honestly didn't really like at the time, but I know that a lot of it was, like me projecting or me being unable to accept certain things. Because the thing I didn't like about her was that she was very cheerleadery, and I was in a space then that was very, very negative, and I did need to be validated for that. And I know that's something that I learned when I did work as a therapist for a short time, was that some of the times I had to sit with my clients through the darkness. And I remember talking about this in a meeting with other therapists, because that is part of what is draining, so very draining about that job. Because when I think back to when I was really depressed in my young 20s and I had a therapist who was just like, but look at all that you've done, that didn't help in that moment, because what I needed was somebody to sit with me through what was really hard. And I genuinely think that maybe it would have changed if in those moments she had met me where I was at and asked me the right questions. And in reality, she didn't. And maybe it was that I wasn't ready, and that's totally possibly true. But obviously there are ways of helping people through that I think are somewhat natural and intuitive for me, and maybe not for others. As for me, if I was fighting really hard with a client, not fighting, but like if I was feeling a lot of resistance and I was trying to get them to see something, or in a different way, or asking them different questions, and at some point I realized like, okay, I'm forcing this right now, I need to just sit with this person, I would. To my own detriment, because there was this one period where I felt like I was just sitting with all of my clients through this darkness, and then I couldn't get out of it myself. And so catch me not doing therapy anymore because it was so hard on me. Anyway, I'm rambling. I was talking about autonomy being really, really valuable, and that being something that really, really matters to me. And again, comparing kind of like my younger self, who obviously through talking through all of this was very determined and very ambitious and like wanted things to be better, and I wanted to be healthier, and I've always had this like perfectionist inside of me that I'm also fighting. And I think part of the like being in the moment and just kind of saying what needs to be said here is a part of me fighting that I can't always plan for things. I can't always know exactly what I'm going to say, whether it be in front of the camera or out in real life. And I wouldn't have been able to do this back then. I wouldn't have been able to stand in front of a bunch of people and talk for an hour, because I wouldn't have felt that I like knew what to say, and I wouldn't trust that I could do that I could improv, or that I had enough to say. And I was thinking this morning about, again, what I said in the beginning about the year just like not feeling very long. Like if I plan out every topic for every show for the year, that's only going to come out to what, like 48 shows or something like that. I guess maybe that sounds like a lot, but I don't know. I was thinking about how, what was I going to say? I was just thinking about how I don't have to worry. I guess like finding all of my journals and like seeing them in front of me makes me realize that like there's just a wealth of information within my brain, and I don't have to worry about whether or not I'm going to have enough to say. And I know every week that I come back, I come up with more ideas, but a lot of them are just the same ones. Like it's the same topics that I bring up every week, and it's me revisiting them and relearning about them. And it's just this really crazy interesting thing where I'm continuously learning lessons that I've learned, but again, I'm learning them from a different space with more knowledge and experience behind me. So this thing keeps coming up today about about how the intensity of the negative emotions or symptoms does get less over time. And it's almost like that gets quieter and then the lessons get kind of louder. And so it's like I'm able to follow through on some of these things that I've wanted to for a very long time, because a lot of the stuff that's getting in the way is just simply quieter. It doesn't matter as much anymore. So with that, I have one more segment, and I will see you back after the last break in just a couple of minutes.
Hello, everyone. This is Joseph Skoda with Social Media Shows. Well, I thank all of you for your support through these last several years, and it's been a lot of fun. We've given people a voice they never had before. Now, Social Media Shows is always collaborating with our veterans to help them do things and help out the veterans who are struggling today. And we teamed up with GI Connections, connecting veterans with resources. So please consider helping and donating to this great cause, because we're always doing things for veterans. So GI Connections, Social Media Shows, and you is what makes the world a better place. Once again, Joseph Skoda, proud United States Air Force veteran.
Hi, I'm Deacon T with Modern Word Ministries. It's great to be with you today. Just a short little promo for our show. Every Sunday morning we have service, and you can follow us at 10 a.m. Pacific time on modernwordministries.org. And if you missed us or you want to see some of our older messages, go ahead and check us out on socialmediashows.com every single morning at 9 a.m. It's a great way to kick off your day, get a little bit of the word in you, get something uplifting, get you started off on your way. You know, if you're looking for prayer or you need some help, reach out to us. If you go to our website, again, that's modernwordministries.org, you can interact with me via telephone, via DM, text message, whatever you want. I'll get right back to you. So if you need prayer, you need help, you just need somebody to talk to, Modern Word Ministries is here for you. We are your church in the community. So until you see you next time, be blessed, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the last segment of our first episode of Mental Melodies in 2024. Thank you again. I know I've said it a million times today and a million times in last episodes, but just thank you, and please continue liking and subscribing and doing all of those things. If you have any recommendations for me, reach out to me. You can sponsor the show, admin@socialmediashows.com. If you want to reach out to me directly, just email me, carmynbradley@gmail.com. And that's my little spiel for now. I'd like to close out the episode by kind of reiterating some of the stuff I've talked about, but there have been so many things, so forgive me if I don't remember all of them. One big thing is identity, and another big thing is planting seeds. And there's actually one thing about that I've been meaning to bring up that I haven't. And it's this one specific intention. It's more of a mantra that I brought up, or that I've been using. And I may have brought it up one episode before, but it doesn't matter because it's just so powerful. And just the fact that I can look back and see how many seeds I've planted that have come to fruition it's magical. It really is. Like just seeing, again, back in 2015, like this kid saying she wanted to do these things, and then me now at 32 living those dreams is spectacular, and it just gives me hope because I know there's so many more things coming. But one mental health struggle I've had that was actually kind of crazy was that I had this like part of me that would come up sometimes on stage, and it would make me feel that I didn't know how to sing and that I couldn't hear the notes, but I was experiencing it like it was real. Like all of a sudden I was like, I can't hear it, and I couldn't sing on key. And it started happening when I actually got an opportunity to work at Don't Tell Mama as a singing bartender. And it was almost as if like I was getting this opportunity and there was a part of me that was fighting it, that like didn't want it. And that's something that happens in a lot of people who have extreme mental illnesses like I've had, where you've had like struggled with suicidal thoughts or made an attempt on your life, is that you can use that parts of memory therapy that I've been mentioning, to go in and find that part that tells you not to be here anymore, that tells you you can't do it, or whatever it is. And there's lots of different theories about this, that that's what I love about like learning about all of these things. Like I said, I found that video that described identity in the way I've been describing it. And then I found a book that was actually for actors called Resilience for Actors that I'm working on reading right now. That's about changing your mindset. And really all it is about is taking those moments where you're resetting and you're doing better because you know better, and you're seeing it as an opportunity. So if I mess up, that's an opportunity for me to learn that lesson again. You know, I posted something on Facebook, what is just this little cartoon. What is it that this new year is going to bring us? 365 opportunities. And I would argue, count it down to every single second. That's how many opportunities you have. Because you can mess up 1 second. Start over the next moment. Like when I go back to that, the analogy I always use for this with like losing weight or gaining weight or getting healthy, because that's where a lot of people are at with their goals and they stay there forever, is that a lot of people don't give themselves the opportunity to start over. They'll say, oh, I ate a cupcake for breakfast, therefore I have to keep eating this crap all day. I'll start tomorrow. Instead of being like, I just ate a cupcake, whatever. That shouldn't matter that much, by the way, but we'll get into that later. But anyway, if you want to eat healthy, start over the next moment. Or start over at your next meal. But so many people are procrastinating because they're sitting in this guilt of like, I messed up. And if you start to sit in the guilt of I messed up, then you get to shame, where you're like, I'm a bad person. And if you start to believe you're a bad person or that you're incapable of making change, well then you're right. What's that saying about like, if you say you can, you can. If you say you can't, you can't. That's so very true. So a lot of healing from all of these things is literally like battling those parts of yourself. So going back to my point that I was making about planting seeds, that I knew that I had worked hard and that I was singing at Don't Tell Mama because I deserved it and because I was good. There was part of me that delusionally was thinking like, maybe I'm just not good and everybody's just pretending, but that doesn't even really make sense. But I had to fight those thoughts, and so I started saying to myself, I trust my voice. Or I trust myself, I trust my voice, I trust my ears. I trust myself, I trust my voice, I trust my ears. And I was just saying it day in and day out and day in and day out. And then also going to therapy to get that part of my mind and to learn what childhood trauma it came from, and to take up that emotion that was in my body and face it and heal from it. And so again, it worked like dominoes, like I mentioned earlier, where last year, was it last year? The year before that? Anyway, the year before that, I had this like terrible summer where that's when it started to happen. Forgive me. I'm like working things out in my brain. But so I started singing at Don't Tell Mama, and then I had this really, really terrible headache. And it would hit every day around 10 a.m. in one eye. And it would build and build and build and build and build. And my eye was swollen by like 3 p.m. and it was just pulsing. And I literally thought I was going to die. And I dealt with that for a few months. But there was a part of me that was like, this has to be trauma related. This has to be related to something that I'm healing from right now, because I did go to the doctor and they didn't find anything. I don't know if any of you have been through the struggles I've been, where you just like, you get a brain scan, there's nothing. So why am I having a seizure or this or that? If there's no explanation, my belief is that you can heal it psychologically. If a doctor can't figure out what's wrong with you, go to a mental health therapist, specifically one who does like parts and memory and does deep work. I bet you can heal from your bodily ailments if you find out what childhood thing affected it or whatever emotion it is you haven't dealt with. I bet you that you could. And I did. I haven't had that headache. I had to fight through it for a really, really long time. And then one day I woke up without it. And then slowly, like day after day, I stopped having it. I don't have that thing anymore where I suddenly don't think that I can sing. And it's because I went and healed from those things. And that's, anyway, it's just so powerful. And I want to just reiterate like the power of planting seeds, but also like the power of patience. So I know not everybody probably feels the way that I do, that 2024 is like here and gone already. I just feel like a year is not as much time as it used to be. And again, I feel like I'm just kind of rolling over from the last year, not necessarily in a bad way. But maybe let me take some time to allow myself to slow down, because like I said, if I look back on last year, it did go by, but also like a whole lifetime happened. There were so many things that I went through and did and pursued, and it was just a lovely, beautiful mess of a year. One of my favorite books, I have so many, but Tale of Two Cities is one of the ones that I first taught as an English teacher, and it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And I just love that for this duality loving queen, because that's often how it is, where like life hits you and you're going through one of the hardest things ever, but life is also giving back to you, and there are so many things you're growing from and becoming. And that was kind of my last year, where it was like I was becoming the singer, songwriter, artist that I always wanted to be, and I was also experiencing these like deep dark feelings last year and deep dark experiences, but like I wouldn't have it any other way, because there's so many things that I learned and things that I changed that I don't know, anyway, I'm in my feels, you guys. Sometimes that happens, where I just like get popped into a feeling and then my train of thought is just affected. But that reminds me, because I was telling myself to slow down. And that's usually the lesson that I need to bring into these episodes in moments when I feel a little rambly, is just to slow down. And that was something that when I was doing mental health therapy, there were moments where, again, I had to sit with my clients like in darkness. Sometimes you have to sit with them in those moments where like words are just not necessary. And so I have moments like that here too, where it's like I can just sit with this feeling for a moment. And one thing that I do want to do, I think maybe even now is the time that I'm committing to it, like in front of you all, so that you can see if this works out. But I want 2024 to feel slowly, and in general I want like life to feel slow. I want days to feel slow. And there's so many goals and things that I have, and so that part of me that wants to plan it all out and know like exactly what I'm going to do on any given day or when I'm going to achieve these goals is a little bit scared to let go a little bit. But then the part of me that again sees that so many things that are happening now were planted way back when, knows that I can trust the process. Like I know that I will achieve all of these goals. So what it comes down to is like, what things can I let go of, and how can I adjust so that I don't feel rushed, but yet I'm still following through. And so again, it's just about like finding all of that balance. I think that is generally how I started the episode talking about, right? Is like finding balance and following through. Follow through is something that I've mentioned multiple times, because it was one thing back in 2020 that I was like, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And for me, that was also just a healing thing, because there were so many things I didn't do that I said I was going to do just simply because I mentally wasn't healthy. And so now I experience, again, these things on more of a micro level. So like this morning I was kind of having this feeling of like, man, I'm tired. Like maybe I should have started Mental Melodies next week. Like I don't know if I'm ready for this year. But today I noticed it, and I noticed that it was a feeling. And because I've learned about my feelings and because I've explored my different voices, I was able to kind of talk to that voice and be like, I know that you're tired. I know that you're feeling this kind of like resentment, but we've felt this before and we've gotten through it before. And my ability to be aware of it changed the whole morning for me, because instead of sitting in that resistance and kind of feeling tired and like wasting the morning, I just sat with that feeling. And I've talked about this on the show before, and this is a huge trick that I'll reiterate over and over again, because I think people need to learn how to do this, where they take a feeling and they can notice that it's not them. I'm not this feeling of resistance. I am me. I was going to mention after that one video I saw that was talking about like your identity as a university, right? And she had made the joke about multiple personalities. That another thing that I found was The Untethered Soul. I'm actually listening to it as an audiobook, but that's another one of the books that I'm going to eventually put on my website so you can reference. But Untethered Soul, he talks about this idea of awareness. And not necessarily as, well, yeah, as this, if you take a step back from everything and you're feeling something and you ask who you are, it's like oh my gosh, this is a whole book of information that I'm unloading in the last few minutes of this episode. So let me reel it back because I might need to just revisit it next time. But essentially, I guess I want you to think about like, who you are. He says, ask this question and ask it all the time. Ask, who am I? Again, this is something I did before I found this book. I was writing I am poems and trying to think about who I am when I was just trying to figure it out. So, but anyway, he says, ask who you are and ask it often. And it's a very deep question. And what you'll often find is that if there is some kind of identity inside of you, like a soul that's separate from all of these different personalities and emotions that you have, then that thing is like that pearl that I talked about. And whatever it is that's closest to you, that's underneath all of that, is aware. You're aware that you feel. You're aware that you want. You are aware that your body is hungry. You're not your body, right? You are aware, and that's you. And what is that? I don't know, but it's something that has the ability to choose. I think that that's the something that has the ability to find autonomy. You can find it because you can eventually weed out all of the voices and emotions that you have and decide. And there's one quote that I'll probably misquote, something about there's power when you have an emotion. Usually you just react, right? This was what that girl was talking about in the multiple personality video, that like when you react to anger, that's not really you, right? That's like your angry part, but you have the power as this like aware person to decide, but it's in that moment, right in between like the trigger, the impulse, and then the reaction is when you decide like, just because I'm feeling this emotion doesn't mean that I want to like become that emotion. So anyway, I'm running out of time, so those are all topics that I will definitely bring up again next week. Thank you again for just being here and for listening to the first episode of 2024. So many more episodes to come, so many more things to talk about. I feel very, very grateful, and I hope that you all have a lovely rest of your week. If you want to sponsor the show, once again, admin@socialmediashows.com. You can email that, and just keep following, subscribing, liking, and I will see you in just one short week. Have you felt lost, lonely, or maybe even a little bit loony? I talk about these things on my show and how to help them. Mental Melodies, broadcasting live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. and every Saturday at 11.